CHAMPS Live is presented by Lawrence Technological University, where Blue Devils dare, Hungry Howie's, famous for flavor, and the Detroit Medical Center. Do you have a sports injury or are just looking to take your game to the next level? Go where the pros go. Visit dmc.org/gamechangers.
Hey everybody, hope you're having a great one. Welcome to episode 54 of State Champs Live, presented by Lawrence Technological University. Hey, do you have dreams of playing collegiate hockey? Lawrence Tech has 2 men's ice hockey programs in the American Collegiate Hockey Association at both the Division I and Division III levels. The ACHA has announced they intend to have a competition season for the 2021 school year. You can recruit yourself at ltuathletics.com. We are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. My name is Lauren Plant. We're talking hockey today and a brand new fall hockey prospect league with the NAPHL director. But first, let's get to the headlines for Tuesday, June 16th.
Northwoods Baseball ready to go. The Northwoods League is a summer circuit for college-age players with 230 alumni reaching Major League Baseball, including Curtis Granderson and Max Scherzer. The Michigan pod of the Northwoods League added 3 new teams and will begin play in front of limited crowds starting July 1st. The league will conclude with a 3-day playoff in September. In Traverse City, the Great Lakes Resorters and Northern Michigan Dune Bears were added to the existing Pit Spitters, while the Kalamazoo Mac Daddies joined the Kalamazoo Growlers and the Battle Creek Bombers in the Southwest. College players trickling back. College athletics in the state started to get back to somewhat normal on Monday as athletes began to return to the state's biggest schools to be tested in preparation to returning to athletic activities. The University of Michigan began welcoming football and men's and women's basketball players back to Ann Arbor Monday, while Michigan State's football, men's basketball, and volleyball veterans returned to East Lansing, with other teams to follow at the end of the month. Central Michigan football players headed back to Mount Pleasant on Monday, while Eastern Michigan athletes were due to start returning to Ypsilanti on Tuesday. Oakland University will welcome athletes from its basketball teams the last week of June.
All right, those are the headlines, and let's get to today's Hungry Howie's Twitter question of the day. Do you think the Tigers would make the playoffs with a shortened season? Yes, not likely, or it's too soon to tell. I think you're being extremely optimistic if you answer yes, but I like that. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. All right, find State Champs Michigan on Twitter and vote. We'll read the results tomorrow. All right, so the North American Prospects Hockey League has been in existence for over a decade now. There's a new fall league that is taking place in Minnesota this year, featuring a few events that could get some hockey players, more specifically teams here in Michigan, excited. Maybe you guys could be a part of it. The director of the NAPHL, the commissioner, joins us today on live. Tony Zasowski, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so you are there in sunny Texas now, and for our audience who maybe don't really understand what the NAHL, the NAPHL kind of is, kind of describe what both of those organizations are, what their purpose is, because I know that you're obviously heavily involved with both.
Well, I mean, the USA Hockey created a very simple structure for the prospects out there to understand of how to get from youth hockey to NCAA or ACHA hockey. With 3 levels of junior hockey. You have the USHL, USA Hockey's Tier 1 level, the North American League's USA Hockey's Tier 2, and then the NA3HL, owned and operated by the North American League, and the Eastern Hockey League are the Tier 3 levels. So basically the North American League oversees the NA3HL, and then 11 years ago, the NAPHL was created to basically have an extension of that, to try to bring players into our family of leagues, showcase them to our junior scouts, and ultimately help them on their path to get to college hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year was such a crazy year here in Michigan alone. We were literally days away from the high school state championships when everything shut down. And obviously, I'm sure because, hockey continues, what kind of events and things, did you have a lot of events that were canceled or things like that put on hold as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I mean, from a North American Hockey League standpoint, yes, we lost about 10 games of the regular season, and obviously the playoffs were canceled due to COVID. The NA3HL, the playoffs had just begun, and our national championship for the NA3HL was end of March, and that event was wiped out. So from the junior leagues, it was definitely impacted heavily from the COVID. From an NAPHL standpoint, our leagues end in February. Our championships were actually at the Troy Sportsplex there on President's Day. So the Tier 1 leagues end because basically the Michigan and all the state tournaments and the district playoffs all start in March, leading into the national tournament, which is in early April. So from the NAPHL standpoint, we were done. But the big impact, for our youth players was that we started combines end of March and actually had a big combine scheduled for April in Rochester, Michigan, to showcase all the players for the junior teams, and that was canceled. So we're heavily involved right now in trying to restart everything. We're in the planning processes. We do have a combine scheduled for Rochester, Michigan, July 2nd and 3rd, and we're going through if we're going to be able to operate that event or we're going to have to move it to a new location. So busy times here trying to plan and kind of react to the COVID situation, but ultimately we're just trying to get ready for next season.
And I love it because you got to move forward. So, whatever you're presented, you got to make adjustments. And maybe that is kind of where this new fall league has sprung. That obviously there was a need. You needed more evaluation. You needed to get these kids on the ice, get them in front of the people that need to see them. So talk about kind of how it's grown or, how it's spawned here and what you guys are hoping to get out of it. Just give us the details on when it's taking place and all the good stuff.
Well, I mean, the history of the PHL has been a lot of fun. I was the president and 18 AAA coach of the San Jose Junior Sharks, 11, 12 years ago, and helped launch the NAPHL with the North American League. And I came back to work for the league 3 years ago after being a head coach and GM for the Springfield Junior Blues for 5 years. And when I came back, I knew that, the Tier 1 division is very strong. We've got a 14, 15, 16, 18U Tier 1 division that we've actually expanded this year. We're in our second year of having a West, Central, and East conference, the kind of self-contained and kind of travel, condensed travel down. And given the COVID situation, it should make it a lot easier for people to stay kind of close to home. But ultimately, 2 years ago, knowing that players come from anywhere and everywhere, we created a high school division that we call NAPHL Prep. And like I said, we had 2 years now of into that division of the PHL, and then we started a showcase division for Tier 2 AA teams. And we're also two years into that one. So we've been growing rapidly. And ultimately what we try to do is talk to, coaches in the North American League and then also youth coaches and find those next, areas that we can basically take teams from and get them in front of the North American player scouts and even the NA3HL. And ultimately high school hockey is the toughest area for us because the teams that play that November to March season, there's not a lot of area for those teams to travel out of state. And what we found is that a lot of those players look to do stuff in September and October. And the North American teams started getting more and more involved in basically building these teams. And, this year was kind of one of those years that it seemed like a lot of North American teams wanted to build these September, October teams. And we had a conference call about, 2 months ago because we had a lot of time on our hands since we weren't playing hockey and said, is there a way for us to kind of build a, 3-event league that we can bring players in, get them showcased, and ultimately that's how it was born. Was the Minnesota Magicians, the Minnesota Wilderness, and Janesville Jets had teams last year in this category, and this year Austin Bruins, Chippewa Falls, and Kenai River were on that call and said, yeah, we're interested in kind of using our staff, our scouting staffs, and building teams and bringing them in, and Fairbanks Ice Dogs, basically just hopped on board and said they're doing it. So right now we've got 7 NAHL teams that are going to build teams of prospects to play in this league. And, the one area I've reached out to is, some groups in Michigan, the MDHL and MHA, Michigan Hockey Advancement, and inquired with them and saying, there's a lot of good high school hockey players. Me as a former head coach and GM in the North American League, I had high school hockey players, I believe from St. Mary's, that came through and ended up going to play Division I hockey. So, I know there's talent everywhere, and we want to make sure we're tapping into all those resources and getting them in front of our NAHL teams.
Yeah, that's great. And you've seen real growth in high school hockey. In other areas, high school hockey is obviously it's huge. Here, it was dominated, for the elite players by the club scenes forever. But there's been more and more an opportunity for the high school competition to be high level, and we've really gotten there here in the state of Michigan. You mentioned Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Yeah, certainly some great players that have come from that program, and now we're seeing it, much more far spread than just the Southeast Michigan region now, especially out on the west side of the states, the Grand Rapids areas, and from up north in the UP. So early September are these events. They will be taking place in Minnesota, and the important thing is this is so because you were mentioning all these schools, Fairbanks and the Magicians, just so the audience understands, these are NAHL teams, and they are the ones who operate this league. They are trying to stock their shelves with future prospects by checking out this event and these types of events and leagues.
Well, ultimately, that's exactly it. The flagship event for the NAHL is the Showcase in September. It's played in Blaine, Minnesota. For those of you who haven't been there, Blaine has 8 sheets of ice under one roof, and that's the big reason why all the NHL teams go there. So all the NCAA, NHL, NCAA Division III guys can go there and see every NAHL team under one roof. And we've built a 100-team youth event around that event on September 17th to the 20th. So that's kind of the flagship event that kind of kicks off the season. And so all the NAHL teams were wanting to put youth teams in at the 16 and 18 level in that event. And so ultimately that was kind of the cornerstone of building this league. The Minnesota Wilderness were already scheduled to do a youth event over Labor Day in Duluth, Minnesota. So it was only natural that we use that event as kind of the starter to kick off the season there. And then ultimately the NAPHL's had a 100-team event in October in Blaine. Again, given that there's 8 sheets of ice, we're able to do before the high school season starts. So we're going to make that the playoff. So, right now, the first year, it is 3 Minnesota events. But, going forward, we definitely see this league evolving where there's going to be events, in Wisconsin and Michigan and who knows where else. Because, again, there's a lot of great high school hockey players that have come through. One of the players that we're most proud of in the North American League is Hellebuck. And Hellebuck was an undrafted, untendered player that made a North American team out of a tryout camp, and obviously he's in the National Hockey League now. And like I said, I had Brendan Blazak, and who just finished playing up at Alaska Anchorage, I believe, or Fairbanks. I apologize to Blazak for that. And Anthony Scarcella is at Michigan State right now. He's another Orchard Lake player that came through. So we know players are out there. All the teams in the North American League heavily scout that, and really we want to get those players seen. And the easiest way for the North American League, head coaches and assistant coaches and decision makers to see it, guys, is basically bringing them to our events. And what better way to do it, by having players come to our flagship event in September and have some great hockey.
Absolutely. And again, it's all about being seen and, having an opportunity for people to see you in an organization where obviously you're playing at a high level with guys of your skill level and gives you a really good assessment. And you've had success stories that have come out of the Prospects Hockey League. Just give us a few for those who follow the sport and want to see who are some of the names from before that are now making waves.
Well, this year we've had 32 Division I commitments. I think that's the big thing with our alumni. The Lucius brothers are actually, one's at the National Development Team, another one's headed there in the fall. But ultimately, like I said, we've got some players. Austin Matthews actually played in the NAPHL when he was 14 years old. I mentioned some other guys there. We got Tyrone Bronte, who was a leading scorer in the NAPHL. He actually played for Meyer AAA in Michigan there, and he played for Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and he's obviously going to Division I now. So Thatcher Demko is another kid who came through San Diego, played out there for the California Titans in San Diego, and now he's playing for the Vancouver Canucks. And then Swayman, I think Swayman's the most recent one, came through. Basically, it's now the Colorado Springs Tigers. They rebranded. He came through the North American League, went to Maine, and he just was named the Mike Richter Award winner for best goalie in college hockey, and he signed an NHL contract. So, the thing that we find is that I always love to kind of compare hockey to college football. is that, most people get kind of caught up in having to play for the brand name teams always and say, oh, this team's the top 5 team in the country, or this is that. But I always equate that to college football, where, every year, my alma mater, Notre Dame, Alabama, LSU, they all get the top recruiting class for kids coming in. But when you watch the NFL draft, it's not just those schools that are being called. It's, the smaller schools, because it's basically about, opportunity for players, how hard they're working, where they're at, and, showcase themselves for the teams at the next level. So we as the North American League, really have, basically history to show that, players come from everywhere and anywhere. And we're trying to make sure we're getting that exposure and trying to find those players for our league, because ultimately for us, the most important stat we have at the end of the day is how many NCAA Division I commitments that we have moving on. And, so that's what we're graded on. It's a fun time for us. The North American League just announced today a new expansion team coming in 2021 in El Paso, Texas. Making it the 28th team in the North American League. So our league is doing well right now. We've got tons of NCAA commitments. It's a record-setting year for us. And, we're just kind of continue to drive that number. And I really take it upon myself as director of player personnel to, use the NAPHL as a vehicle to, really raise awareness for our league, how good it is, and help the teams find talent.
Fantastic. Tony, I really, really appreciate you coming on the program today. And best of luck with this league and everything moving forward. It's all about, just trying to support the hockey community. And, it's hockey town here in Detroit. And we've got a lot of guys on the up that, have big dreams. And obviously, if they follow the right path and get to participate in some of these types of events, they can get exposure they just wouldn't otherwise get. And especially for our high school hockey players who we love so much here, to be able to give them an opportunity is fantastic. I hope it continues to grow, and I hope we can have more events here in Michigan. If there are any teams out there who feel that they might want to be able to have a chance to compete, how should they get in touch with you?
So they can go to the NAPHL website. There is stuff there in inquiries about joining the NAPHL that they can submit an inquiry for that. My information is out there too. It's just Zasowski at NAHL.com. At the same time, for any players, looking to try to get exposure, get to the North American League, the NA3HL, or the combines, we do have NAHL combines starting up in July for kids. For any players here that are kind of all through the Michigan and the Midwest area. So again, make sure that you're taking time to go to an NHL tryout camp, an NHL combine, or find a way to talk to your coaches and encourage them. Hey, we want to be part of the NAPHL Fall League, because, like I said, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and we're doing our best to make sure we find it. And anything we can do to help you out would be great. So I appreciate you having me on, and like I said, this has been a great opportunity for us, and look forward to watching many players in the North American League in years to come.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tony. Take care. And if you get some more information or something, we can do this again and kind of get updated. But or if you got something to announce that's going to happen here in Michigan. But thanks again.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. You got it. Let's check out what happened this week in state champs history.
A Division III softball state final from a decade ago takes center stage as Allen Park Cabrini met Olivet. Cabrini was in the state championship for the 4th time in 5 years, while Olivet was searching for its first state title hardware. It was a scoreless game into the top of the 10th as Cabrini's Kayla Kostic with a moonshot for the solo dinger that gave the Monarchs a 1-0 lead. Olivet responded in the bottom of the 10th. Paige Redmond, the laser beam over the wall, tied the game at 1. Bottom of the 11th now. Katie Playtech with a walk-off single, 2-1 the final score as Olivet became first-time state champs. This week in state champs history is presented by Lawrence Tech Athletics. Recruit yourself at ltuathletics.com.
And now it's time for today's clip of the day.
And that's your clip of the day.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. You had to be there and see it to believe it, but a triple play to end a state championship game. Pretty amazing. But we love your clips too. So if you want to send us your clip, something you created, maybe you're working out or doing some kind of cool trick or something like that, just be safe. Send it to us on any of our social media platforms. We'll check it out. Do you really understand the importance of recovery? Well, this DMC Game Changer segment is all about it.
Here at the DMC, we utilize the Normatec boots as a main component of our recovery program. A session on the Normatec boots for 30 minutes is the same as resting for 24 hours. If you don't have access to the Normatec recovery boots, don't forget to include good nutrition, foam rolling, and stretching.
So you need to check out the full 2-minute versions of every Game Changer segment. And the DMC Sports Medicine and Physicians and the Rehabilitation Institute team, they have access to those boots. It's amazing. And it can be a program, especially for you athletes who are constantly in competition, to keep you fresh. These programs are affordable too, and they're pretty unbelievable. There's a great place out in Pontiac. There's an Exos training session if you're here in Southeast Michigan, and there's others. So why don't you check out dmcgamechangers.com, and you can find out more links and information about that. All 15 of our segments are on our website, statechampsnetwork.com, and our free app, and we've got a great playlist on our State Champs YouTube channel. All right, well, RoboZone is First Competitive Robotics. We're going to be talking robotics on tomorrow's show, so I'll tease that in just a second. But obviously, their season was shut down this year, but there's a lot of exciting news that's going to be happening, and there is fresh content that we are still producing. So just search RoboZone Show on any of our platforms. You can find out all the latest that's going on with the amazing world of competitive robotics. Our Esports League of Legends series and our high school season, I believe, is ending right now. And I believe we are ready for our championship if it has not happened already. It's kind of, things have been fluid trying to get these things finished out, but it's been another amazing season. We're going to be introducing Rocket League, you can see here, in the fall, and Overwatch is going to be jumping on this winter. So State Champs Esports will have 3 high school level leagues that you can join, and we'll be open to teams in Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. So we're hoping to have a really explosive, great league, and just be all about esports. If that's what you're about, we want to be there right with you. So let's check out the results of yesterday's Hungry Howie's Twitter question of the day. Could you support an Major League Baseball season of only 50 games? Absolutely. I knew that was going to be overwhelming. Definitely. If you're a baseball fan, we want baseball back. Well, like I just mentioned, tomorrow on Live, we're talking robotics with Clinton Bollinger. He's with a company called the Robot Space, but he's also with a highly successful robotics team named the Team Engineers in the first robotic competition. So COVID-19, like we said, completely destroyed their season, but and that included the World Championship that was set here again to be in Detroit. We're going to get an update as to what's going on right now, what's next in robotics. A lot of exciting things will be happening. We'll talk about it tomorrow at 2 o'clock. If you know of a guest you want to see here on Live, please email our show coordinator, Amanda. You can email her, Amanda@yellowflagproductions.com. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Right now, we are all longing for the roar of a crowd, the excitement of a stadium filled with cheering fans, and the ecstasy of celebrating a hard-fought victory. But right now, we're all on the same team, and we must do our part to make sure as many students, athletes, coaches, teachers, parents, and loved ones are there when we have the luxury to resume our rivalries and start rooting for our teams once again. Stay home and stay safe.
State Champs Live is presented by Lawrence Technological University, where Blue Devils dare, Hungry Howie's, famous for flavor, and the Detroit Medical Center. Do you have a sports injury or are just looking to take your game to the next level? Go where the pros go. Visit dmc.org/gamechangers.